Welcome to the 2021 National Alzheimer's Summit. This is the most exciting year since Us Against Alzheimer's was created in 2010. I've always wanted to open our summit with these words: hope is finally here. The FDA's approval of the first ever disease-modifying treatment marks a seminal moment in the battle to end this disease. By delaying disease progression for people in the early stages of Alzheimer's, many may be able to live independently and perform daily activities longer. And the approval is already spurring more innovation by other companies in this promising first class of drugs, promising improvements over Aduhelm. But as we know, this class of drug will be followed by subsequent classes of drugs that will be even more powerful than these amyloid-lowering drugs. All of this will mean more treatment options and choices for patients. But the innovation is occurring not just in drugs, but also in new blood-based tests and exciting digital assessment tools essential to diagnosing this disease earlier in its course, potentially decades before symptoms. Doing that will enable future disease-slowing medicines or even vaccines to be administered before symptoms occur and potentially to prevent symptoms of Alzheimer's entirely. That's the vision: preventing Alzheimer's through new, innovative medicines. But that's not yet the reality. We know where we want to go, but we must also recognize just how far we have yet to go. And the theme of this conference: are we ready to stop Alzheimer's? No, hell no, we're not ready. In fact, the controversies and challenges seen over just the last few months show that all of us have a great deal more work to get there. When we formed Us Against Alzheimer's 11 years ago, we created an action-oriented organization that runs to the hardest issues in this fight. It uses the power of the voice of patients to bring together sectors and people, all of us, to work collaboratively towards the goal that all sectors, all companies, all governments, and all researchers share: stopping Alzheimer's, but which no single company, no single government, no single researcher can do on their own. How do we do our work? Knowing what's going on in the field, understanding and getting input from a wide variety of sources, we identify through thought leadership a strategic barrier. We then convene stakeholders across governments, research institutions, and companies to lay out agreed solutions that no one stakeholder could execute on their own. This incubation process catalyzes innovative approaches to deep set problems and new ways of collaboration to solve those problems. As initiatives germinate, we assess if they can be funded and executed effectively within Us Against Alzheimer's, or better spun off and funded and executed in a sister organization, such as our Global Alzheimer's Platform Foundation that works on clinical trials, or our Davos Alzheimer's Collaborative, which is now working globally. Throughout all of this, we are guided by the needs of people living with the disease and their caregivers. With that very much in mind, we want every company to develop a successful drug, every scientist to get the Nobel Prize, and every nation to be the fastest in enabling families to get interventions to citizens at risk for Alzheimer's. So how do we see the work ahead to get us ready to stop Alzheimer's? We strongly supported the FDA's approval of Aduhelm as a drug that is effective in lowering amyloid in the brain and proves the promise of providing a clinical benefit to patients. At the same time, we've raised strong concerns about the affordability of the drug for patients of this treatment and of the essential diagnostic tests needed to determine whether one is qualified and appropriate to get the drug. We have called for a speedy clinical trial to confirm the clinical benefit of Aduhelm. We have urged the conclusion of a much more diverse population in that confirmatory trial. And we ourselves are constructing a patient-driven study platform to assess the real-world impact of not just Aduhelm, but other drugs in the pipeline as they come through the pipeline and are available to our families. The announced price for Aduhelm of $56,000 a year, plus the cost of office visits, diagnostics, and other tests, will limit the availability of this first-in-class treatment to only the wealthiest Americans unless the company and insurers, including Medicare, work together to keep patients' out-of-pocket costs low. We're actively advocating with Medicare to cover the cost of the entire class of amyloid targeting treatments and of the necessary diagnostics to determine whether an individual has amyloid in their brain. The controversies over the last few months have held back use of this promising treatment. Doubts have been raised about its safety and efficacy. Reviews and investigations are underway about the regulatory review. Meanwhile, patients and doctors are wondering whether they should start on a drug that may not be reimbursed by Medicare. We are confident that those reviews, that confirmatory trial, and the coverage issues will be resolved in the coming months. The approval of Aduhelm, however, and the progress being made with other treatments in the pipeline have put a brighter spotlight on other critical issues that are essential in the fight against Alzheimer's. And that's where we are focused, the toughest problems. First, it's essential that access to research, treatments, and diagnostics be available for all Americans, especially for low-income populations and for women and communities of color that have a prior prevalence of Alzheimer's. Our Center for Brain Health Equity is on that case. In 2021, our center has secured commitments from industry to set more ambitious goals to recruit people of color into potentially life-saving clinical trials. Second, earlier detection and diagnosis has never been more important, especially when these new treatments work best in patients with mild cognitive impairment or in the early stages of Alzheimer's, or in the future for persons with the disease, but before symptoms are evident, a period that we now know is up to 20 years. The BioHermes study at our Global Alzheimer's Platform sister organization is comparing new blood-based diagnostics and digital assessment tools in a study with the current but expensive and relatively inaccessible PET scan imaging technology to determine what of these new technologies and innovations is most appropriate for early detection. Third, with earlier detection, healthcare systems can take advantage of new evidence regarding the value of risk reduction and lifestyle interventions, studies showing that up to 40% of dementia cases can be prevented. Our work has led to the recommendation by a federal advisory council that the national plan add a risk reduction goal, a recommendation now on the desk of Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra. Fourth, our seminal work in studying what matters most to patients is getting the attention of policymakers and decision makers. The FDA looked to those patient perspectives in determining that patients were willing to undertake a degree of risk in making the choice on whether or not to try a new treatment. Finally, Us Against Alzheimer's has been warning for several years that the US and global healthcare systems are not ready for an Alzheimer's treatment. Regrettably, the events of the last several months have proven that it's still the case that our healthcare systems cannot deal with brain conditions or memory loss. So we have to run to that challenge. How are we doing that? Healthcare providers must be trained, tooled, and incented to detect and diagnose Alzheimer's. So we're working with Congress, physicians, and Medicare to solve that issue. Patients must be willing to raise the question of their memory concerns and their brain health with their doctors and nurses. Working with diverse medical experts and technical experts at Amazon Web Services, we have launched our free Brain Guide platform at mybrainguide.org, mybrainguide.org, where people can take a private memory questionnaire for themselves or a loved one and obtain tailored resources and information for use in their conversations with their doctors. Government and private insurance payers have a vital role in incenting physicians to diagnose Alzheimer's and ensuring that treatments and diagnostics are affordable and accessible to everyone. Before treatments are widely available and affordable, policymakers must support families in need today. We are deeply involved in urging Congress to approve paid family and medical leave to dementia caregivers who too often must choose between their job and caring for their loved one. I will always want the pace of progress against Alzheimer's to be faster, but I've never been as optimistic about the future in the cure of this disease as I am now. But our work is far, far from being done. As a nation and as an organization, we have a lot of work to do to get the right patient, the right drug, at the right time, at the right stage of disease. So we're not ready yet as a nation or a world to stop Alzheimer's. We must get ourselves ready. We have the capacity to get ready. Now we must act to get ourselves ready. I'm very proud of this organization, built on a culture of passion, collaboration, and agile entrepreneurship. We may be smaller than others, but we punch way, way above our weight class. So on behalf of my co-founders, John Dwyer and Meryl Comer, and of course, my late wife, Trish, we want to thank publicly the mighty Alzheimer's, Us Against Alzheimer's team. Let's get started together. Thanks for listening.